So the United Nations Working Group indicted the Nigerian government and the Kenyan government for brutally bringing Nnamdi Kanu back to Nigeria and keeping him under horrendous treatment. If United Nations organization, the Charter of 1945, to which you are a signatory, you are a charter, you are a citizen of the world, by being recognized by the United Nations, and it has given a ruling, and you ignore it, there are usually consequences. Such a country is turned into a pariah nation.
Soon, in conjunction with other governments, accusing the government of Nigeria of genocide in violation of the Genocide Convention against Biafrans in the southeast. The International Court of Justice is an arm of the United Nations, and it was created precisely to handle disputes between countries for violations of international law.
Nnamdi Kanu's international lawyer, Fein, calls for Nigerians' expulsion or suspension from the United Nations, other bodies over countries' lawlessness, IPOB leaders' detention. Today is January 28, 2024. Bruce Fein, the International Council for the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, has called on the United Nations, European Commission, Commonwealth of Nations and African Union to investigate Nigerians' eligibility to sit among the family of civilized nations. Fein described Nigeria as a lawless nation and urged the United Nations, Commonwealth of Nations and AU to reconsider Nigeria's membership. The lawyer said this in a letter titled Nigerians' Incorrigible Lawlessness, Suspension or Expulsion from International Bodies, and dated January 27, 2024, which was addressed to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, European Union Commission President King Charles III, and the AU chairperson. He said Nigerians' contempt for the rule of law militates against its eligibility to sit among civilized nations. In this letter, Fein lamented that Kanu is currently arbitrarily detained in Nigerians' dungeon in precarious health and detained access to necessary medical care. He said the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention declared on July 20, 2022 that Mr. Kanu's detention was in violation of 16 jus cogens international human rights conventions. It ordered his immediate and unconditional release and repatriations. Nigeria has snared at and disrespected the working group's order for more than 18 months. The move to expel Nigeria from the United Nations and other international body did not start today. It started 2 years ago when Bruce Fein, the Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer, visited the United Nations Center in 2022.
You may win the war without winning the peace. So at the end of the day, it is always better to have peace, lasting peace, not what Chief MKO Abiola will call peace of the graveyard or peace of the cemetery. So I wrote to the president a 38-page letter with an executive summary of 3 pages, pleading with Mr. President to please release Nnamdi Kanu immediately and unconditionally, because Nnamdi Kanu's trial, as far as the facts have shown and as far as I'm concerned as his lawyer, is nothing but a political trial. Nnamdi Kanu is only a metaphor for the Igbo struggle for self-determination. And self-determination is recognized as a right by several international instruments. The United Nations Charter, Section 1, United Nations Charter of 1945, Section 1 of the International Covenant on Political and Social Rights of the People, Section 1 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights of the People, Section 20 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. All of them recognize self-determination to determine your destiny, how you want to live. as a necessary concomitant of human beings as Homo sapiens. So that was how Nnamdi Kanu in 2012 founded IPOB, a non-violent organization. We all saw the marching of the streets of Umuahia, Aba, Onitsha, Enugu, and elsewhere, blowing whistle, marching, singing, wearing beret. They were not violent until the 14th of September 2017, when through Operation Python, the Nigerian army invaded the ancestral home of Nnamdi Kanu with his father in residence, Eze Kanu, using Operation Python. In that operation, about 28 unarmed and innocent Nigerians were brutally mowed down. Nnamdi Kanu escaped through his teeth with the whiskers and landed first in Rome and then Israel, where he deposed to an affidavit to show the circumstances under which he had run away from Nigeria, that he did not jump bail which had been granted to him. Whilst on that bail in United Kingdom, as a citizen of UK, Nnamdi Kanu visited Kenya. And on the 26th of June, 2021, Nnamdi Kanu was forcibly abducted, like was done to Maru Diko on the 9th of July, 1984. He was kidnapped, forcibly abducted, blindfolded, tortured, and brutally, horrifically renditioned back to Nigeria without Nigeria undergoing the due process of extradition law and going by the doctrine of specialty, which says you can only be brought back to face the trials on which you have been rendered, not existing counts, right, and not the existing counts on which you were being tried. So when Nnamdi Kanu was brought back, they had to again amend the 15-count charge, the 8-count charge that were against him before he was brutally brought back to Nigeria, to 15 counts. I went to court, argued against the counts as being not valid. The court struck out 8 of the 15 counts. I have made this appeal to Mr. President because you notice that being the metaphor for the Igbo struggles, even though it's not physically outside prison, outside the gulag of SSS where it's currently being kept under inhuman and degrading treatment, as found by the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Arrest in its report and ruling of 20th of July this year, the Igbos of the Southeast still obey him on any day his matter is coming up by sitting at home. This grinds to a halt businesses and the normal way of life. What I have done is to appeal to Mr. President to, to use extrajudicial means, not by force. If United Nations organization, the Charter of 1945, to which you are a signatory, you are a charter, you are a citizen of the world, by being recognized by the United Nations, and it has given a ruling, and you ignore it, there are usually consequences. Such a country is turned into a pariah nation. When you talk about treason, Section 15 of the Extradition Act says you can only rendition a person back, not for counts that were already going on, but for the matter you think he has done wrong there. So the United Nations Working Group indicted the Nigerian government and the Kenyan government for brutally bringing Nnamdi Kanu back to Nigeria and keeping him under horrendous treatment. Treason, there are no counts really bordering on treason. The nearest they have is what they call treasonable felony. But we have shown the counts for what they are: empty, hollow, vain, vacuous. Counts that have no substance, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That was why we were able to strike out to get 8 counts struck out, remaining 7, which we have told the Court of Appeal to also strike out. If you accuse a person, for example, of making a broadcast. You didn't state where he made the broadcast, whether it was in the spirit world or in the land of the dead or in ghost land. And then you are saying that based on that voice, which can be simulated, that some people demonstrated in Nigeria and burnt houses. Some military people were also affected. I hope the government will be able to call about 1 million Nigerians out of Nigeria's 280 million people to come and testify to show what effect they said a broadcast from an unknown destination, contrary to the Federal High Court Act and contrary to decisions by the Supreme Court, that you must state the venue of an offense and the time. They did not state. Would they be able to have up to 1 million Nigerians to come and state, okay, you made this broadcast. That is why some people broke ribs. The counts themselves are ludicrous and ridiculous. The nearest they would have got is that he imported the transmitter.
All right, so
to where Obulu is Suzo. Anambra State, which the Federal High Court in Abuja has no jurisdiction over. So I am telling President Buhari that as the president of Nigeria, he can look at the larger picture, not at the smaller picture. He must see the cup as half full, not as half empty.
All right.
He must see Nnamdi Kanu.
If I may come in here,
from the binoculars that is being persecuted, his political persecution, as found out by the United Nations Working Group on arbitrary detention.